Right everyone, we are kind of near Celtic Park. We've had a huge mishap. Basically we'd recorded about 3 or 4 minutes of our previous video and then the wind decided to take hold of my camera. I saved the day. I moved like Joe Hart, if you will, to save that. And we're restarting another video in a slightly more enclosed part of the stadium, but we're chatting after Celtic 3, Ross County 0. Comfortable win in the end, Stevie, but it didn't seem that way for a lot of the game.
No, it didn't. It certainly wasn't a 3-0 game. I know that it literally was, but you know what I mean. It certainly didn't feel like that at all, and the complexion of the game really could have changed if Ross County took their chance when we went 1-0 up, which we had to have to say was quite fortunate the way we scored. And I did say, Hamish, me and you agreed that you tweeted it, but I was saying to people I was sitting with at the game that was probably the only way we were scoring.
Yeah.
But if you take positives out of it, I don't want to be too basic about it, but it's 3 points. It's another clean sheet, and the team will get confidence, especially guys like Ayeti as well when he scored their 2 goals.
Yeah.
It wasn't particularly great, but
no,
certainly it was a strange game in that respect, but you will take the good from it.
Was that, dare I say it, Euan, the sign of champions?
I don't know, I like it, but I mean, it's that thing about winning ugly, isn't it? That's how you win the leagues. But it's very strange that we can talk about a game where we won 3-0 and still come away with like doubts and talk about how it wasn't particularly fluid. I think that was to be expected though. There was a lot of new faces there. Some I thought did pretty well, especially considering their debut, considering the crowd, considering the conditions, I suppose. But yeah, no, it was a strange sort of game, and I think again like 3-0 flatters us, but I'll take it every day. You know.
Who stood out for you?
I thought on his debut, I felt Carter-Vickers was certainly decent. I wouldn't say it was a world-beating performance, and it wasn't particularly up against exceptional opponents. But I thought he did okay, and as you say, I mean, he did take a bit of responsibility, which led to the goal, which we needed to see. And I felt as well up until he came off, I thought Callum McGregor as well at times was doing the job of our 3 midfielders. He was playing it deep. He was then trying to create. He was just chasing after other players. It was absolutely brilliant for us. I'm delighted that he went off though, because it was good to see him getting rested, especially after the shift for Scotland as well during the week.
Yeah.
So I was to choose between the two. I'd probably just say Cameron and Carter-Vickers, mostly because of the goal in his debut and the fact that it came at such a crucial time for us.
It's weird because you're chatting about McGregor. I thought he was quite poor the day. Did you think he was good?
No, I thought he was solid, you know, and solid without being spectacular.
His ball use was poor. No.
I don't agree. I felt like the only I thought in general, but we didn't have that's one of the problems as well in the first half, especially. We didn't have a grip in the game in midfield. We've always been crying out to have a midfielder to take the game with the scruff of the neck, as I always say, and I felt McGregor was one of the only ones out of the 3 that could actually say, I'm actually performing here. But no, it wasn't a vintage Callum McGregor, but you certainly get pass marks compared to like Rogic and Turnbull as well.
Yeah, Rogic and Turnbull I thought they both looked pretty laboured, and I don't think Turnbull even played for Scotland, or maybe played a few minutes. I think he maybe did come on in one of the games, but he looked really slow today. Rogic, you can tell quite early on in a Tom Rogic game what his performance is going to be like, and you just got the impression early on today that he wasn't going to quite be at it. I think he looks languid all the times, even when he's playing well, so you don't necessarily, similar to Edward, you don't want to read too much into it, say he wasn't interested or anything like that. I just thought it was one of those days when nothing was really coming off for him. McGregor, I suppose, was marginally better for me than the other two, but I thought the midfield was poor today. I thought Jota on his debut was pretty good.
We've discussed this off mic.
People haven't heard us discussing it.
I thought he was just okay. I thought first half, what I did say,
it was an impressive debut, no?
What I will say is he didn't hide in the first half at all. He was looking to get the ball, and he was looking to take a man on, and he was certainly cutting in, trying to create something. So I'll say that, but I really felt in the second half he came right out of the game, and I felt in the second half as well we get nothing down that side at all. But very, very difficult to just read and judge a guy on that type of game as well. There's going to be ones where he'll be able to come off the bench and change a game for us maybe, and there's going to be times where he'll be actually impressing for us against a higher level opponents. It could be like a more high level game like a Hibs, Aberdeen, Hearts. He might rise to that as well, and that's what I'm hoping for. But it was a bit of a laboured game. It was just it just felt like it was a nothing game a lot of the times as well. The atmosphere was so flat too.
Yeah, I thought there was a lot of turning back today. Like when in the past there's been loads of options and the players have been driving forward. I thought there was so many times today, and Turnbull, I'll picking him again when he got the ball, and you're just looking for him to drive on with it, but he does his usual kind of, and he's quite good at it. You know, that kind of turn he does when he keeps control of the ball, but he's just quite slow sometimes. And days like this, when you're not getting it from him, you're not getting it from Rogic. Abada, I thought, was, you know, relatively poor. People are going to be thinking, you know, we are, you know, the most cynical Celtic fans around, because we did win 3-0, and we will come on to positives in a second. We're just getting all the negatives out of the way, but I just thought, you know, there was a lot of kind of average performances today. Who was good, Euan? You know, bring people out of the misery.
I mean, there's no one. I mean, Carter-Vickers, obviously, we've been over him. He had a really, really solid debut, I thought, but there was no one that particularly stood out, which again is weird to say because Ayeti scored twice, and in terms of Jota, I'm not au fait with how you pronounce his name necessarily.
Jota.
Sure. In terms of him, I think we're talking about a very different game for him if the movement from the centre from Ayeti and from Abada is better. There were a couple of really, really good crosses in that first half. I think
no one on the end of them.
No one on the end of them. Someone nods them home. That's a different debut we're talking about in terms of his influence. So I consider that too. But no one stand out. We got the job done today, and that's, again, it's the kind of game you have to win if you've got title aspirations. And last season, I don't know if we get those seagulls. You know what I mean? So I think it was just perfunctory. It was solid.
Is there anything better than a deflected goal, lads?
No.
Do you not love a goal when it's a long distance shot? It's almost certainly not going in, loops over, and the minute it hits defenders, you knew it was in. Even anyone near me in the ground today would have heard me going, that's in. And I predicted it, I was correct.
As soon as the ball hit off the Ross County player, it was a case of saying there's Laidlaw away, because you knew right away that was going in. And I know the feeling. I know there's a lot of things better than that, Hamish. I'm not going to say to the viewers as well, because I'm aware this is a PG friendly show and all that, but it was the moment that hit off the Ross County player and it looked up. You knew that it was just going to deflect in, and it was what we needed at that moment, man.
The next two goals are scored by Euan and Ayeti, but before then, special mention for Joe Hart. Brilliant save. I'm saying that having seen it once live, so it may have been a routine save, you know, in replays, but certainly I thought it was a goal. The boy, Ross County boys in his own at the back post, does probably everything right. Maybe you'd want it a bit more in the corner if you're a Highlander, but it's central, and Joe Hart makes a really big save at a really big time.
Yeah, no, I was sitting behind him and obviously way up, but the reactions were absolutely outstanding. And again, like last season, that's a goal. That's the difference that Joe Hart makes, and I admit I was cynical about him coming in. I thought he might be rusty. You know, I got a lot of pillars for it, but like, he's been so good, and it's those saves. You know, it's those saves that make the difference, because again, if that goes to we were 1-0 up at the time. Yeah.
It was. I think it was just before the second goal as well, because I remember thinking in my head, we're going to go up into the pitch and score, and then the second goal comes. Brilliant save, and as you say, you know, that's why you pay the big money to have a goalkeeper in nets.
One that makes saves.
Yeah, and the reaction was a lot like against AZ Alkmaar as well.
Stadium
it was almost
mental.
the stadium. That was the stadium went nuts when he made that save, just like against Alkmaar. And it's great because he'll get some amount of confidence for that as well. It's brilliant.
Next two goals, Albion Ayeti. Refresh my memory, for first goal header.
Yes, it was second, when we had a corner. Abada gets the ball, and it's the first
proper ball in.
It's the first proper cross that he puts in, and it's actually Ayeti does well with the header as well, but the delivery was just perfect. I mean, it was harder not to score from it. It was just absolutely world class.
But equally it's where you want your striker to be, and then the same goes for the third goal as well, when he obviously can't miss that. It's an absolute sitter, but that's where you want your striker to be, and it's probably where he wasn't enough in the first half.
Yeah, I think we got so used to Kyogo and his positioning that it's a little. We were kind of personally, I was a little disappointed by the runs that Ayeti kind of wasn't making, but then the second half he just had so much more to him. I mean, I think overall it was still like, it sounds harsh to say this, but maybe 2 goals flatters him, but he has to be there in those positions to score, and ultimately, you know, if that's all you get from him, that's fine. That's what his job is. So no, he's fine. I'm still really interested to see what Giakoumakis can do, but
sounds like he's a bit off it. As in fitness.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he had a proper pre-season by the sounds of it, so which is very, very strange. But yeah, no, I'm excited to see what he can do. But in terms of, you know, if he's going to be in the next few games, then, you know, if he can do that again, I'm not going to complain.
We're just kind of hoping that, you know, that those are the 2 goals that are really going to boost his confidence, because I do agree with you. I did think that his link-up play was poor. Now maybe again, as you say, we've just become accustomed to Kyogo and also Edouard.
Yeah.
As much as Edouard wasn't great recently, his link-up play is still pretty good, and well done Edouard today, by the way. But Ajeti's not quite at that level, but maybe he's not that kind of player. Maybe he has a poacher, and listen, if he's scoring 2 goals every game, we're going to be delighted with him.
No, definitely. And every striker we've had over the years has been different, and you look at Kyogo and how different he is to Edouard and how different Ajeti is to him. And if you are a striker like that, I mean that is your ideal bread and butter game, isn't it?
Yeah.
Generally quiet, but the 2 chances you get, you score. He could have had a hat-trick. He had a great chance in the first half of Ajeti, and I felt it was a bad miss for him, but he did make it up.
That the one when he kind of went through and he had to square it to Abada, and he kind of went himself, and it was
he went
tame.
the first half and he hit it right at Laidlaw. But I don't think there's any complaints. But yeah, I think that's the joy of being a Celtic fan, isn't it? And that's what sets us apart from other teams, where 9 times out of 10, if you're a fan of another team and your striker scores 2 goals, it's man in the match, world class performance. We're Celtic fans and we're always expecting, and we have a huge demand for our players to see far more, but that's not a bad thing, and I do feel that Ajeti can probably offer more for us, but the 2 goals will give him huge confidence, and hopefully for Thursday he can see if it's a quiet game against Betis and he's in the right place at the right time like that. We're not going to find any negatives there, are we?
Still concerned about having Ajeti as our main striker going into these really tough games. Even Livingston next Sunday, I don't think Giakoumakis is going to be up to speed at that stage. So I just really hope that confidence from those 2 goals will really kick him on. If you're hearing people screaming, by the way, John McGinley has just turned up in a limousine, 67 Hill Hill's finest. That's what all that noise is. No, I think it's probably the manager or some other major Celtic player. Anything else kind of scream out from the game, Euan? It's just kind of, it's one of those ones maybe in May when we're lifting the Premiership trophy that you're just kind of looking back on and thinking, yeah, that was alright.
Oof, that's getting clipped. Yeah, I mean, it was. When you consider how many new faces there were and how many, like a lot of that team arrived this summer, so we can't really expect them to be flying out of the gate and immediately playing Ange ball. But it was, I mean, considering the circumstances, I think that's, routine is good at the moment. There's been so much that's been so out of the ordinary last year, but I'll take the routine wins every time,
Stevie?
Same as what Euan says. I am a critical man, and I've had wonderful comments on the channel about being negative, even when I'm actually feeling positive, actually, and not just for COVID. But no, I really coming out of a game, I just didn't feel like a 3-0. I mean, generally that is my only sort of complaint about it. I wish we were a bit more fluid in the first half. I wish you saw, I wish we took our chances in the first half, like guys like Ajeti. When you go into that in the second half, it means you can go have a bit more. You might get more of a performance of Jota, because the game was on a knife edge in like 60 minutes. If we go in 1-0 up and the game's sort of, we've got more of a control and a grip in the game, Jota might be able to enjoy more of the second half and all that. You could tell the nerves were playing a big part in it, and it was just a huge relief to get that goal. But see, that's a big thing. See, when we got the goal, and it's when Joe Hart made that save. After that, we never looked back and we looked. We did look stronger. So
it was kind of the reverse of a lot of Celtic games, whereas we started really poorly, but the last half an hour we could have, as much as it wasn't a 3-0, and I do agree, we could have maybe scored a couple more late on as well. First game back after international break, God knows how many players, as you say, that we signed this summer were in that first team. 7, 8 maybe.
And it's all a gelling for these guys to all come together. Look at that defence. Starfelt's still relatively new. Carter-Vickers was making his debut. Juranovic, that was his home debut right back as well. And so you've put they 3 together, and they have kept a clean sheet. And generally, it's can't fault that.
And they put 2 past Rangers, by the way. So that's not to be sniffed at,
Not to be sniffed at. Briefly, Dom McKay. Dare I say? Just first of all, was there anything at the game today? I mean, I was in the standing section, so I saw some sort of a banner, I think, before kick-off that had kind of all the names scored out, but I didn't see what it read. You hear anything?
Didn't see. There was nothing.
There's no kind of chance or nothing like that. We are going to do a video tomorrow. Me and John are going to do it. So we're obviously going to talk about that far more, I think, and kind of get John's thoughts on today's game. But bit of a shock, wasn't it? The news yesterday that Dom McKay's away.
Yeah, no, it was nice. No, it was a huge shock. I absolutely did not see that coming, and it really caused concerns about whether all this talk he had about modernisation and changing the structures and all these things he wanted to do at the club. I've got to assume they were in his job interview. So clearly the board backed that at the time. What's changed in these 2 months? I have absolutely no idea, and it's pretty scary.
There's two possible schools of thought. I think one is that Dom McKay wasn't up to much, possibly a bit of that, and the second one was that he was almost up to too much, and he almost wanted to take the club too much of a way forward, that the people in power at the moment didn't want to go that far. Maybe there's a bit of both in there. Certainly Celtic's side of the story is that it wasn't working. I think he had a fractured relationship with Dermot Desmond when he's only been in the job 3 or 4 months. That's not a great place to be, I would say.
No, and a lot of the problem as well is Celtic and their communication. They are never one for openness, with honesty and transparency. It's almost like they enjoy and they encourage the Chinese whistles and all that as well.
The WhatsApp whoppers.
Forwarded on many times. Yeah. But they encourage it, and that's because they let the stories all build up, and then Celtic actually somehow, like, to the fans' imagination, they let that becomes the main narrative, rather than Celtic just clearly coming out and saying, look, here's what's happened, here's why Dom's away, and here's what we're going to do to move forward. But Celtic don't do that. Celtic just, as I said, just let things snowball out of control.
There's ways they could have done it, isn't there? I mean, I know people are saying, we don't need to know if something deeply personal would happen to Dom McKay, and if that was the case, which by the way I don't think was at all, and I think people realise that now, that's fair enough. But there's ways Celtic could have worded it so that we'd have had more of an idea, and we wouldn't have had all the, as you say, Chinese whispers, whatever you want to call it. It just handled terribly. Once again, the Celtic support find out the truth, or find out one of the parts of the truth from the media rather than from the club themselves. At least this time we got the news, the original news from the club rather than journalists, which I suppose maybe Celtic are taking baby steps. Maybe we should applaud them for doing that. But
it's a low bar though, isn't it?
Yeah, for me, just going back to that day when I sat at that press conference with Dom McKay and Ange Postecoglou
and John Reid.
Of course, the big dog himself, John Reid. Well, I was about to do an impression there. Sorry, John, if you're watching. Formerly of this parish, I should say, John Reid. No, when I was there that day, it's crazy thinking now that Dom McKay isn't at the club anymore. I mean, whatever way you want to spin it, and I know that some Celtic fans, fair enough, are saying that, at the end of the day, it's Ange's the main man, as long as he's doing and the team's playing well. I get that. But it's a major thing against Celtic. Once again, that this board has got this badly wrong. They got Neil Lennon badly wrong, keeping Neil Lennon in a job badly wrong. They got the Eddie Howe saga badly wrong. Now, it may have worked out for us in the end with Ange, but doesn't take away from what a mess that was. And this is another one. They brought a chief executive in after Peter Law, who was at the club for I think 17 years. Dom McKay, I don't think, lasted 17 weeks, so it's an absolute nightmare for Celtic. As I say, we're going to chat tomorrow more about it. Know what John's like. He'll have plenty of stuff to add to the debate as well. Guys, it's been a pleasure. Stevie, Euan, thanks very much. Apologies if this kind of looked or sounded a bit weird. We are still trying things out.
I'm not that bad. Come on. I know Gig Pod are dragging you down, but come on.
Oh, no, not at all. Sorry, we have got a couple of shout outs. I say a couple. This is probably going to take about 20 minutes, so just bear with me. Big thanks to Mazhar Yousaf for helping us out with the video today. He knows what he helped out. Ryan Dooley as well. He was the guy who was walking from here at Celtic Park to Anfield, which is a hell of a walk. He finished his walk, raised loads and loads of money. I met Ryan at Hampden at the Scotland game last week, funnily enough, and he just wanted to pass on his thanks to all of you wonderful 67 Hail Hail fans who donated to Teenage Cancer Trust. So brilliant work. Tony Clark, big fan of the channel, got in touch to ask me to shout out that Anton Rogan, White Clyde Bank CSC, he's just set up a Twitter page there. It's at ARWCSC. And finally, I met a couple of guys at the game today. Dean Connor from the Tommy Burns CSC in Portadown, Northern Ireland, near where Neil Lennon's from, I think. So
great guy.
Make of that what you will. Yeah, that's all the shout outs. Guys, thanks so much for your time. Thanks everyone for watching. Remember to subscribe as well. As I say, we're back tomorrow with John, and take care and hail hail.